Hello, my name is Oge Izu. I'm an artist and writer living in Brooklyn, New York. This is my first attempt at a very fast dissertation of events pertaining to the Living Skull of Oge Izu art project, which I am currently still producing. I have to check the date, but the original start date would be sometime in the spring of like 80 something, 86 we'll say. I was in the 4th grade, so we can cross-reference that. I was riding around a circle at Hazen Union High School with Douglas de Groseilliers, beautiful French-Canadian name, and I did a U-turn into his bicycle, and my front wheel connected with his bike, and in a flash, I went face first over the handlebars into the pavement and knocked all my front teeth out. My friend saw this brutal thing and ran across this sort of lawn thing to the shop where my dad was, and my dad ran and picked me up. And I think he probably just ran straight with me in his arms to the health center place. It's important to note that the Living Skull was part of the very first blackout that I really had. My brain did not record the traumatic event. So basically my memory is of riding a bicycle and then waking up in a health clinic place and just kind of being all covered in blood. I was wearing these corduroy pants, and there was just phenomenal amount of plasma. My father rushed me to Mark Allman was his name, my dentist, with my teeth in a cup of milk to keep them from dying. And we drove from Hardwick to St. Johnsbury. And yeah, I spent a bunch of time as a child getting my teeth fixed. Eventually, both of them would be back in my face for a number of years, and then at the end of my high school, the tooth that they had invested the most effort in, root canals and stuff to fortify so it would live, did not, and it became unstable, and they removed it. At this point, I was a senior in high school, and when it was removed, it was not an option that was given to me to be, anesthetized or made unconscious. So when they removed the tooth, I was awake when at least 4 people sort of cricked and cracked and broke the tooth from my face. And then I remember getting in a car, and there was a hole in my face, and I would be a toothless hillbilly the rest of my days, where I am now, still with the Living Skull. The missing tooth that I have, that I speak through, it's not really the issue. I mean, I have a systemic lifelong problem with my teeth, and I've endured what I casually call many lifetimes of dental work. I'm just trying to maintain it, and it's affected lots of things. So that happened in the end of the 90s. Over the 2000s in Denver, I went to Denver Health and had my wisdom teeth taken out at a clinic that was kind of gnarly. And then in the summer before I quit drinking, around 2021, pandemic time, I was eating just simple kid food with some friends from Belgium, and I bit a fry or a dumpling or something, and it cracked one of my crowns. And I told my friend, and then I sort of slagged through life for about a year, almost, with this broken tooth and this broken heart, doing this broken job and this broken life. And I didn't really want to live. It was pretty oppressive. I worked in a box with no windows. I was making enough money to survive and sort of pull my neck to the top of the chin-up bar every month, but I was suffocated by all these other sort of forces that I really own as things that I brought on myself, as far as the gravitational energy I summoned. So even though other people might have done things to me that were whack, those were people that I had sort of brought in. So, to point the finger at them doesn't really own the fact that, I own my own space. And yeah, so after a certain amount of time, I had a moment where I was going to Penn Station with my mom, and I had a realization. I was like, all right, well, I think I'll just tell her that my teeth were really messed up, and it'll help me to be, accountable for that, getting it fixed. As soon as I did that, I got on the train and I started to write Psychus and Versus, and it took about 7 days. And I wrote a 15-page story that I'd failed trying to write for 5 years. And then after that, I started to kind of surge out work, and I started to actually transform. It was about a year, pretty close after I had stopped drinking. So I'd spent a full year kind of wandering in this healed state to get to the place where I could admit my teeth were messed up, I needed to do something, and in doing that, it made me want to write. I'd been writing at my job as an international shipping and logistical person for 5 years, but in doing that, it made me feel like I was a storyteller and I had stories to tell, and I didn't want to write stupid, ignorant emails and play games with people. I wanted to do effective and relevant writing instead of pissing away my time chasing money for people that don't have good hearts. But it was a great opportunity. I studied under an extremely cruel and brilliant man, and I learned a lot in the time that I spent. It's something that I'm not really willing to share with other people, and it's my privilege. So the information that I attained in my hard work, the pain that I paid in being in a box and being around evil and hearing ignorant words and watching people get gaslit and having their money taken and entering into a toxic situation that would assert a kind of foundation and then shift and then perpetually shift, and the assertions that would follow were always a domino effect of just control and money. So when my boss in September started to play bigger and bigger games because the business had fluxed so many different times, and I was still very much on track to have a phenomenal year and actually outpace myself, he just was so negative and had grown so tired of fighting with the people that I had booked in these great jobs and these high profile folks, because he's not a classy person, he's not an intelligent person, and he's not a person that knows how to communicate effectively or tell the truth. I will say in this moment that anyone in your life who says perpetually, do you want to know the truth, presumes that everything they've said prior to that was not true. So that's an interesting question they ask you, and it really devalues everything they've said. I think in tandem with the sort of living skull thing is that I had, around the same time that my boss had been playing money with me, I had been going back to NYU, getting my teeth taken care of and working with these young ladies that were very ambitious and eager, and in doing so, I had bitten off a little more than I could chew a couple times, and in doing that, it really hurt me in a serious way. So one day I think I pushed myself to like 3.5 hours with my mouth open in the chair, and it felt like I'd hurt myself, and I realized that my kind of masochism that I know from skating and other stuff had kind of like reared in a different way, but the break that it felt and like the way that the trauma triggered me was a little different. I went into a defensive state because I was so hurt, and it was such an old kind of hurt. It wasn't like something that was like a new thing. It was very, very, as you see, like, decades old. I went back to my boss. He really gave me a messed up ultimatum about, my way or the highway, play games, let's not, ever account for things correctly as far as I owe you XYZ and I'm going to give you XYZ. It was always a fulcrum of doubt and control and just gaslighting. So on September 11th, I sit down with the guy. I have a lot going on. I'd spun a whole bunch of plates up and was getting ready to charge into the fall. And the guy sits me down and is like, I'm not happy with you. I don't want to work with you. And, he offered me an opportunity kind of to take the knee again, which I've done, which he probably would have taken if I'd really shown like that thing I've done so many times to keep my job. But I just had enough of him playing games with me and hurting people. So I rose up and I was like, no, if you're not happy, I'm not happy. And the lady in the back isn't happy. And people in my life expect me to yell like my father, and I didn't yell at all. I just spoke calmly and told him he shouldn't treat that lady that way. He said a lot of mean things to me, and I didn't say much. I said a lot of mean things to him later, and I don't think he'll ever be the same. I know I won't. This is my pinky ring finger. I made thousands of phone calls with this finger using this right hand. I took a lot of money from people and I had to pay for it. But I'll fix my teeth and I'll tell the truth. But the living skull component that involves my building is a very complicated and very elaborate grift that I have started and that I control. And everyone's assertions about it are not based on information, but assumptions. Big assumptions, wild assumptions. And people have taken that fear of their assumptions and not spoken with me, but spoken with things and people in my family and stuff like that. And I think concern is definitely to be understood. However, when people of the street speak to each other, they speak directly, as I speak now, and with honesty. So, I will say that snitching and disruptive behavior in one's family could definitely be the sort of thing that would lead someone to have a very violent and cruel end. So please remember, as you reach out to people and choose to open your mouth and make choices about words, actions, fears, things that you really think are worth investing your time in, that you're not alone in feeling fear. But remember that the actions that you partake definitely presume consequences you probably don't get. I have many friends that I've known were not doing well, and I'm the guy that reaches out and they don't get back to me. Sometimes those people die. I'm not the person that stops knocking on the door, and people don't knock on my door all the time, and I don't take offense. But just remember that not knocking on the door and knocking on someone else's door because you're scared could scare the person that you're concerned about far more than you realize. Because I personally have seen it scare people all over the country, and they take their lives and everyone cries on shoulders and says sorry. My name is Oge Izu, 314.